Thank you. So our next presenter is Narendra Gummaiah. Narendra is a technical writer with 14 years of experience. He has worked in diverse domains and produced single source documentation in various output formats. He is also an expert in data. So Narendra is currently associated with Emphasis as a technical writer. Narendra is based out of Bangalore. He also mentors the technical writers in their respective domains. Uh, Today, Narendra is going to talk about the software documentation release checklist. Releases are crucial in the product development life cycle. We have seen in our last two events also, including today. And hence, Narendra is going to showcase some of the challenges which we face in the release notes. This session will focus on last minute glitches and how to handle them effectively. Saying that, handing over to you, Narendra. Thank you so much for joining us. You can share your screen and start the presentation. All the best.
Thank you, Sunita, for the brief introduction. Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Yeah, you can switch on your camera
Yeah,
also.
yeah.
Thank you.
Hello. Let me know once you are able to see my presentation.
Yeah, it is visible. You can put it
Okay.
in the presentation mode.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
It's okay, right? You can see?
yeah, it's
Okay.
visible.
Thank you. So today, I'll be discussing about software documentation release checklist. So basically, this is the writer's, uh, domain wherein they can pitch in, they can have it their self-release checklist. And because writer's role is something that is chaotic sometimes, not in all organizations, but especially if they're following waterfall. In Agile, it's okay, documented, but still, it's always, you know, recommended to have our own checklist. So what challenges we come across and what we can try to avoid the hiccups, especially the last minute release changes, and how can we, develop over time to sustain the anxiety of the release. So basically, each document undergoes through a life cycle called document creation, document storage, document sharing, and delivery. And basically, as our previous presenters explained thoroughly, I mean, detailed about the SDLC and DDLC. So basically, maintenance again, whether we archive it or we delete it based on the company's need. And next slide, this slide we are going to discuss on the content where it fits in. Um, Basically, this table represents why we need, and basically as a writer we always need to focus on the end user, whether he is a novice user, whether he is an intermediate user or a advanced user. So basically, an advanced user will be using very less documents, while intermediate and novice will have lot of documents required to test against the software or to gain knowledge on the software that we develop. Basically, these questions will be why, what, how, technical code, functional and non-functional. Um, so why we need this document? Why is it necessary? For what reason? Then how can it be implemented? And whether it's technical or it's too highly technical or functional or non-functional. Depending on that, we can divide into different categories. And basically, this table, if you just observe, just remember this table. I'll come back to this at a later stage because I'll explain the reason why this table is designed in this way. Okay. Then basically, we have been through this from the initial days. So requirement analysis, designing phase, content development, editing, proofreading, publishing, maintenance. So whether we follow waterfall method, agile, or a lean model, or any Kanban or anything, but most of them regarding documentation will follow this phase per se. Then we have software documentation categories. Basically, it's divided into two groups, main groups, product and process. And product is again subdivided into system and user documentation. Then again, user documentation is subdivided into end user and system administrators. Then system documentation, wherein we require require a document that's important for requirement analysis, design architecture, testing, maintenance, help, guides. Whatever they fit into system documentation. User documentation, it's very simple. End user, we can bifurcate as discussed earlier, then system, high level. Then we have process document wherein we plan for a process. We think, okay, we need to implement this. So it's always better to have a process documentation like plans, estimates, schedules, localization, worksheets, and SOP, standard operating. All these fall into this category. Then moving on, okay, we need to prepare a standard checklist, or we need to remember these points. Target audience, that's main. As we writers, we or the developers. That's why we are also called as information developers. So we need to understand the target audience, whom we are targeting. So it's always pivotal, to understand, because we shouldn't get confused. And then because that depends on the language that we have to use. Like we have to be clear, use clear and concise language, avoid jargons and unnecessary technical terms wherever necessary. Unless it's necessary, yeah, we need to implement it. We need to, utilize it or leverage. It's always better. Then another factor is, in case if we don't have a CCMS or a CMS, then it's always better to create a common content wherein that can be leveraged across different documentation types. It's always easier, it saves us time and effort, because that would have gone through the editing, reviews, then SMS reviews. It would have gone through the review cycle. Then tools and templates. So it's always better to use, customized if the company allows, or if the company has a standard template, and it's always better to use that and the right ones, because we'll talk about deliveries. Why tools and templates are very important. Then structure, documentation structure, which it should be logical and easily be found, because as a writer, we need to make sure that um, the users get the information, quickly, instead of wasting their time searching or contacting the support. Then again, it comes back to us. That's depending on the logical structure, how it is. So it's always best to keep it simple. Then visualization, we need to add screenshots because one picture talks a lot. So wherever, like we have architectural diagrams, it's always better to retain them, or convert the text so that it's very, very easy, like we discussed in the table. So that gives a overall, gist of what we are trying to explain. So that gives a clear picture. Then we have procedural instructions, wherein we need to use simple steps, step-by-step instructions. It has to be simple, literally. Um, because I'll explain one scenario. Like we had this issue while documenting an enterprise platform, and we ran out of QA, SMEs. The steps weren't that easy, but still we wanted someone, third party, one who doesn't know or one who is aware of what software is. So we um, asked the help of, house help. Like he was walking by, we asked him because he was able to read English. So we caught hold of him, and then he read through and decided, yeah, he identified a mistake. There was one mistake, one step missing. So it's always better to take anyone's help. As a writer, we shouldn't feel, we know everything or SMEs know everything. It's always better to question, try it out ourselves, and then, write it. So it's always easy. So, and next is to keep our documentation, up to date, reflect with what's happening in the release through, because the release last minute changes, yeah, it's, Herculean task to bring in those changes, but yeah, we need to run, burn the candle. So it's always better to make sure that it's updated than testing. It's always better. We need to check ourselves, do a validity testing or, white box testing. So it's always better. We need to have hands-on experience in using the software, like installation. So it gives different, challenge to us. We'll learn something, new language, new platforms. So it's always better to explore. So I know a few companies will not, entertain, but still, it's always better if you get an opportunity to explore. Then accessibility. Yeah, we need to follow accessibility because these days we are having on different devices like mobile, iPads, then tablets, then desktop, laptop. So it's always better. And accessibility is for the physically challenged people also. I mean, we'll have a greater or broader and greater, business generating if we have the accessibility. As we um, writers are the main, bridge between the end user and the software or a product, basically. Then metadata. Also make sure to check metadata because it provides all the information that is necessary, whether what document we are sharing with and to which level. That basically goes on the disclosure level. Then feedback. I know most of us will not get feedback, whatever good work we do. I mean, if there is a small mistake, yes, we get a lot of very good feedbacks. Um, so we need to always go back to SMEs, check, and then ask them for the feedback from the PMs, from the organization, basically, and different documentation examples like most of us have already worked through. Like Agile database documentation, API, customer documentation, software architecture documentation, then product manuals, repair manuals, troubleshooting, user guides, SDK, then project plans, business standards, test schedules, market requirement documentation, white papers. It goes on actually, basically, case studies and requests for proposals and general proposals. So basically, I put a small list of documentation examples that we writers work on. So there are lots actually. Moving on to next slide, we'll talk about documentation deliverables. Basically, keeping this presentation generic, I've taken consideration into two, deliverables like static and dynamic. In static, we'll be using a template that is, that we can work offline or online and generate, and we can use a third-party tool or a vendor or a person to upload the documents, or we can share it to them. Then dynamic, that we'll be doing, end to end. Documentation cycle will be from end to end, from the writer's responsibility to upload it on to the specific audience or onto the support sites. So basically, this is I've taken this from the data view, the static and dynamic deliverables. So globalization again, uh, localization, globalization, internationalization, and translation. The series goes like GILT, globalization, internationalization, localization, and translation. Difference is almost similar, but they're not same. Globalization, where the company is, venturing into the new market, it's expanding its business, it's going to a new region. So obviously, they need to adapt it to the international according to their culture, and it gives a feeling, literally, this is our product. So basically, we writers have to work on localization, wherein it's the process adapting their culture. Basically, culture means it's the slang or jargons that they use locally and local standards and requirements. So, and localization is broadly divided into region wise, like codes. WW stands for worldwide. That is, our documents are released worldwide. Then we have EMEA group, that is Europe, Middle East, and Africa countries. Then North America, that includes North America and Canada, Latin America. Um, that roughly we have, 33 countries that fits into Latin America, um, like Central American countries, South American countries, and so on, and APEC, that is Asia Pacific region. Um, then we have APJ, that is Asia Pacific and Japan region. So we need to make sure we are reaching the audience, to the specific region. Um, that's how we can build business. That's how we can show, what a writer is can bring to the company, the business. Basically, company is a business again. So we have a localization code in data. This is particular to data. This is identified by ISO 639-1 language code, and region code is ISO 3166-1. So usually, basically, we'll have an underscore and or an hyphen. Basically, it's always better to use underscore. Like, for example, we have EN underscore US for English in United States, because there is a difference between United States English spelling and British. So the code is EN underscore GB. So this reaches the EMEA group, while ENUS that will reach it to North America region. Then we have simplified Chinese for China. Then we have traditional Chinese ZH underscore TW and ZH underscore CN. Then we have Indian English. Okay. EN underscore hyphen IN. So basically, mm, Indian English depends on the company whether they want to use British or United States, English. So it's left to the company's discretion, but most often it is United States, because instead of spending amount time on creating a as unless until it's company's requirement, we usually go with United States, EN underscore US. So we tag it to the Indian region, and then the document is available. Then metadata. Okay, metadata plays a very important role because in simple terms, metadata is info of info, but it gives extra information. It's nothing but what this document is, what is the purpose, what is the source, and type, owner, then relationship with the other data sets. Especially when in localization, we'll write it in English. Basically, the source will be in English, but we'll be sending um, for translation in different languages based on the requirement or for the region that we are aiming for. So basically, we can have a creation date, access permission, then software required, and copyright information. So copyright information, basically, it will be for that particular country in the particular language. For example, if you are targeting for Japan, it will be in Japanese language, except for the copyright year, because that will be in English. Basically, that's what we have been following. Some companies might be different, but still, as far as my knowledge goes, it's in English. Then disclosure levels. When we are not using the third party tool or a person or any other processes, so we always use, dynamic delivery. So it saves time basically. Earlier, we had to wait for the vendors. They used to take 15 days time for the product to reflect. For that, we need to, plan our schedule 1 month ahead. We had to rush things. We had to complete the deliverables, keep it ready, share with them. But in dynamic delivery, it's really, it hardly takes 24 to 48 hours max. Usually, it will reflect in a couple of hours. But depending on the backend system or the our servers, CMS or CCMS servers, the upload time will be 2 to 48 hours max. Then it will always be followed by a suffix. Like, for example, if you are delivering a help file, online help, so help system like underscore 123 underscore for the region. Then again, it will be in a zip format. We'll deliver it to the system administrator or the publication manager, one who is responsible for uploading the site contents or for the support. So it will be the backend support team that will be doing this. Then if it is in PDF, usually we need to ascertain the difference between, which format, which was the output format that we generated. So it's always easier to track. So metadata will have this information and it's part of the properties. If we look at the PDF, if we go to properties, we'll get all these, listed out like PDF underscore 1234567 underscore ENUS. This is targeted for English Americans, basically American NA region. Or this can be applied for globally for the worldwide when the decision has been taken for the English to be in American English. Then we have the HTML files index.html. So basically this will be the suffix. Then we have the disclosure level suffixes. This plays a very important role because in metadata, we need to tag it, whether it should be available for the public, whether it's confidential and it's for the, top management, especially to carry out their, business strategies to design for the forthcoming releases or for the expansion. Then we have restricted within art internally or to the specific individuals or to the group. Then we have customer viewable. So it's always we can give a test, like we can have the test conducted, then we can do surveys, then we can collect info. Then we have the verbal use, like how it is, that goes with the five. And then channel partners. Usually these days companies are coming up with channel partners, outsourcing a lot of, segments so that it's easier to get the work done. Um, so these are the disclosure level suffixes where we need to tag this or we need to enable the checkbox. If and this is basically depends on the company. Even if we are using a word, we need to mention this and we need to enable, who is responsible, um, whom the document gets through. So it's basically gives an idea. Then again, release types. We have three types: major, minor, and emergency. So major will have new features, significant changes. Basically, it will have a lot of changes. As a company, if you are working, if you are launching a product, then yes, that will qualify under major release. Minor release, that might be, for the smaller, bug fixes, then smaller updates, there might be a GUI change. These all fit into minor releases. For example, if you have any heating releases, so that might be fixed through a hot patch or a emergency release. That in case it has been released to the market, then we need to roll back. Then we can re-release it, and then yeah, this is basically into three major,
Narendra,
minor,
we
and
have to
yeah,
be Narendra, we have to be a little bit faster.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
carry on.
Thank you. So a software documentation release version. So basically, considering example as 1.1.1, it's a major release, patch release, minor release. So 1.0 will be the major release, 1.1 will be the minor release, then 1.1.1 will be the bug fixes or the patch release. Then we have releases like alpha, that's basically in testing, very, the starting point of a software under documentation, basically where we can, then beta, general availability is for the public, then limited availability. So basically it depends on the disclosure level. Then first customer shipment, where the customer receives the product and he can, then early deployment, limited deployment, maintenance deployment, and hot patches. Then we have the success indicators. We need to ensure that uh, we have deployed or we have released on time, within budget, without any unresolved or pending issues, accessibility, compliance, whether we are compliant or not. Then we have the little or no impact. Basically, we need to make sure that the customer, uh, or the end user is happy, and feedback. Yeah, it's very important to get feedback. So this is one of the chart. Earlier we used to have only tick mark or yes or no. But basically, we need to mention this, requirement. It has to be yes. If it is a no, we have to manually enter no, because this is for the accessibility, that is the compliant. So basically, this is what I wanted to cover. I think we are done. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Narendra. It was really, really very insightful session. So please, any question for Narendra? He is available to answer. Please go ahead.
Okay, so if there are no questions, then may I ask one question?
Please.
Okay, again, a very basic question, because primarily I just try to focus on what was before and what's now after implementing the process. Okay, so now before, when you have implemented this release checklist, so of course you must have seen some change. So what prompted you to create this? Go through this. What were the challenges?
That's a wonderful question. Because as a writer, we'll not be working on a single, project. We'll have the minor releases coming in or the patches. So we'll be working on multiple, projects simultaneously with the deadlines, overlapping most often. So basically, we had this literally when we are working on a major release. They had this minor release, it's already released in market. We want this to be updated. You know, we can't work on the because we need to think from the end to start point as a writer, because then we can allocate the time.
Right.
So because it's our job and responsibility, to make sure that we have time, breathing time. We have to avoid these hiccups, because at the end they'll blame the writer. It's been documented, but software is not working this way. But it will be their mistake. Software developers would have fixed one issue and they would have multiple issues. So what we need to come up with flyers, or we do have to come up with addendum docs and tell the customers, okay, this we are implementing, release no, be ready, something. So again, it comes to our plate, to take decision.
Very true. Yeah. At least having a process gives us a reason, to
Mm,
go back and say that, okay, we had it,
yes.
but somehow you were not able to follow. So it's not our fault. At least that thing is there. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sunita, I assume there is a question.
So we have, yeah, yeah, yeah. There is one question from Bala Subramanian. So his question is, what is the differentiator between limited availability and limited deployment? Yes,
Yeah.
Narendra.
Yeah. Um, Thanks, Balasubramanian. See, limited availability is within the group. Okay. What in our company, what we do is we just give it to, like, for example, QA is testing, and then they have passed all the, it's ready for the general availability, or we are ready to ship it to the customer. Then what we do is we release these, software as well as the documentation. So they do the last checkup, only for these testers or SMEs, so that they can test. Um, and then they'll deploy on the hardware devices. Basically, install and make sure that it's working into the similar lines. In case if there is a major difference, yes, I mean, as a company, they take a decision to hold on for another week's time. But since it's already announced, we release it, then we'll make ready for the patch release. Hope this answers your query.
Yes, Narendra, thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. Because the last minute hiccups,
Thank
right?
you,
We can't keep on
Narendra.
documenting, telling them again and again, because they come back, especially in waterfall cases. This scenario is typically on waterfall. Agile, yeah, they have a process.
I can see Shruti Mahulkar typing something. Shruti, are you trying to type a question? Then you can ask quickly. Okay, here it comes. Here it comes.
Then a fund
Yeah.
company, not a
She has a question. While releasing the document, if the enough
good
and
question.
complete data is not available for particular section of document, then how you handle that situation? What procedure you generally follow? Screen changes, data, or anything?
Okay.
Yes,
Um,
Narendra.
Very good question. Actually, this happens, SMEs, especially in the month of December, and company has planned for January 1st release. That will be the global availability, I mean, general availability and available global. What we do is, if that section is not completed, right? If this is for internal customers, then we leave that as a placeholder, especially when the software is still in development or it's still in the testing phase. We put a placeholder for graphics as well as the content. So this will be updated shortly, and we'll communicate the same. In the worst case scenario, sometimes if it is released to public, we need to convince the management as well as our team writers, management, leaders, managers, and then plan for a CPs, change product engineering. So that's like a minor release. I know this happens. Seriously, I mean, I have encountered this.
Shruti, could you get your answer? Yeah. Okay. I think there is no more questions. So thank you so much, Narendra. It was really a very, informative session. If I have to summarize your key points, like the software documentation categories flowchart was quite helpful in understanding the classifications of documentations, and the checklist and the sequence were designed very thoughtfully, and you explained it so well. Naren, thanks for that. And I really, the localization code which you shown us,
Mhm.
I have come across it as a new thing for me. You explained it so well. Thank you for sharing those things. And definitely, yes, types of releases and all that we have seen in many presentations. But these were the key points I wanted to highlight this because these are new things for us to see in a
Yes.
release notes presentation. Thank you
Because
so much for the
we do work
session.
for 36
Yeah,
languages. So as a writer, we need to check the